Welcome to the Parlay Matcher. This thing allows you to make around 10 to 20% more on your free bets and risk-free bets compared to the DutchMatcher. Sorry, DutchMatcher. However, you can also use it in normal mode to get through sports bonuses. Let's dive in. The best way to kind of explain the benefits of the Parlay Matcher is to start off with the DutchMatcher. Okay, so this is the bread and butter of match betting where you're turning free bets into guaranteed profit, right? So let me just go through a very quick example here. We've got the Washington Wizards and the Charlotte Hornets game, and the DutchMatcher is telling us that we can convert a free bet into 70% of its value. So for example, if we had a $100 free bet, we could convert that into $70, all right? And just to kind of show you that on the calculator, $100 free bet on Bet99, $354 on Pinnacle, and you can lock in $70 profit, okay? That's pretty good. But we can do better, okay? And the way we can do better is using the Parlay Matcher, okay? So here we go. Parlay Matcher is now in free bet mode, and we're going to say primary sportsbook, Bet99, secondary, Pinnacle. And as you can see, this thing is giving us a 85% free bet rating. Whereas the DutchMatcher is very simply putting on one bet on a straight single bet on Bet99 and hedging with a single bet on Pinnacle. The Parlay Matcher is actually saying, let's put the free bet on this three-way parlay, okay? So the moneyline Canadians game, player receptions, Stefan Diggs over 4.5, and player receptions, Cooper Kupp under 2.5. Okay, so this is a three-way parlay with combined odds of 7.92. And essentially this calculator is saying that if we place this three-way parlay and hedge each of the legs as they happen, okay? So we start by placing this three-way parlay, right? And we hedge the first leg only, so we're hedging the Bruins game here, right? And only if that first bet wins, then we move on to the second leg and we're hedging the second leg here. And if that second leg wins on Bet99, then we're hedging the third leg, okay? So if we follow that process, then this calculator is telling us we can actually lock in around $85 per $100 free bet, okay? So let me just go over that again because this does kind of confuse some people. We open up the calculator, we would be placing a three-legged parlay on Bet99. So we're placing a bet on all of these three outcomes to happen. Okay, that's what a parlay is. It's betting on multiple outcomes to happen. So you're betting on the Canadians, Stefan Diggs over 4.5 in this game, and Cooper Kupp over 2.5 in this game. You're betting on the three-way parlay, which gives you total parlay odds of 7.92. I'm using decimal for now, but you can use American if you like. And we're hedging the first leg only, okay? You'll notice that each of these games are sequential, as we call them. So they're in order, all right? So they're one after the other. And the whole idea is that we're hedging each leg at a time. That's the only way that you can hedge parlays, right? Because we can't actually hedge a parlay in one bet. You have to hedge each leg as it happens. And you may be wondering, right, so if I was to place a parlay where all of the games are happening at the same time, can I hedge that? And the answer is not really, no. So we're hedging the first leg, okay, so we're putting a bet on this Boston Bruins game. In this case, let's say it's a $100 free bet, we're betting 91.31. And only if that bet wins on Bet99, then those winnings are getting rolled over to this next game, right? And so we're hedging that second leg here. So we're hedging this over here. And only if that bet wins, then we move on to the third leg. If at any stage any of these bets lose, then the parlay is dead, and your money will all be in Pinnacle, and you should be up 84.92 or thereabouts. And just very quickly, you might be wondering, why is the Parlay Matcher giving us better odds than the DutchMatcher in free bet mode? And the reason is, if you know how free bets work, because the stake isn't included in the returns on free bets, you actually want to go higher odds with your free bet, right? So there's no point in putting your free bet at odds of 1.1, for example, right? Or minus 1,000 American odds. Because if you put a $1,000 free bet on at 1.1 and it wins, you only get $100 back, okay? So it's kind of a bit of a waste. So because the stake amount is deducted from your returns on free bets, this graph kind of shows you how much you can expect to juice out of that free bet as you increase your odds of the bet that you're putting it on, okay? So what I've done here is taken odds going from all the way from 1.1 up to 8, and then I've got the fair hedge odds, okay? So this is like, assuming that there's no overround, what could you hedge this bet on, right? So this is an example of if you could bet on 2 and then hedge on 2, right, you're only getting a free bet rating of 50%. That's not very good. We usually recommend, whenever you use the DutchMatcher, that you're going to get a free bet rating of around 70%, okay? So somewhere at least odds of kind of, around 3 is what we're aiming for here, okay? And you can also see there's a kind of law of diminishing returns here as you increase your odds. Like there's no point in going kind of above 8, for example, because the free bet rating is not going to be substantially more. And the thing about increasing your back odds is a lot of these books give you worse value as the odds get longer, okay? So they apply a higher house edge as the odds get longer. So it's actually very unlikely that you'd be able to get, for example, a bet of 8 and then be able to hedge it at the fair odds of 1.14 here, right? Because this book with the odds of 8, well, the fair odds might be something like 10 in this example. So they apply a high margin to these higher back odds, and that's why it's very difficult to get high ratings as you move up this back odds graph here, right? And the way to fix that or improve that is that if you find 3 different selections which are all individually highly rated, then we can get a total parlay odds which is high, so you're getting up to 8 here, right? So 7.92 in this example. So you're getting high odds and you're also getting good value, okay? That's the kind of secret sauce that's going on in the back end on the Parlay Matcher. That's why you're able to get better value here. So DutchMatcher is giving us 70%, Parlay Matcher is giving us 85%. That's fantastic. I'm just going to talk about some of the filters here quickly. So you can filter for different bet types. I've only talked about free bet now, but I'm going to talk about risk-free bet in a second. And you can also do normal bet. If the book is saying that you have to do a 2-legged parlay or a 3-legged parlay, then sure, you can do that. I'm just going to stick to all for now. You can, of course, change your primary sports book. That's the sports book you're placing your free bet, risk-free bet, or normal bet on. And then this is your hedge sports book. If there's some criteria with regards to the leg odds, you can filter those down. And also this is kind of important here. So this is the min leg gap. As default, we allow 3 hours between each of the legs. And that gives you enough time to get your hedge bet on for the next leg, okay? However, if you don't want to stress about it, maybe you're a bit busy, maybe you want to increase that to say 6 hours, that will remove some of the selections, but it's going to give you a wider time gap between these 2 games, okay? So this is giving us like a full day here, for example, right? I'm just going to put that down to 3 hours again for now. If it's 3 hours, you might get some cases where, you know, this game is starting 3.5 hours after this one. So you just need to be on the ball. You would need to get that hedge bet on potentially as soon as this leg is finished, okay? Now, if the book is offering a 2-leg boost percentage, so there's some cases where sports books would say if you're placing a 2-legged parlay, then you get, for example, a 5% boost on your winnings, then you can account for that here and it will update your free bet ratings as usual. Caesars actually, I believe, have a 20% leg boost on 3-way parlays, which is incredible. In this case, you know, you could get 102% free bet rating, which is pretty crazy. That means you could in theory make $102 per $100 free bet. So just remove those for now, and we're back on this free bet rating of 85%. You know, the 85% is pretty good, but if you kind of sit and wait for some really good ratings to pop up, you can get some crazy ratings. Like Connor found a 95% here. Gabriel found this 104%, which is absolutely insane. This is on Bet99 hedging on Pinnacle. Okay, so 104% means you can turn a $100 free bet into $104. So if you do sit and wait, you can get higher than 85%. Now I'm going to talk about one potential pitfall with the Parlay Matcher that you may well have foreseen already. And let's just say that we're doing this game here, okay? So we're doing this parlay, and we're going to say save parlay. We're going to call that Bet99 free bet 10, whatever. And we're going to head over to the save parlays. We're going to say view save parlays, and we're going to load in this Bet99 parlay, right? So let's say that we've placed the first bet. So we've placed this 3-way parlay on Bet99 with our $100 free bet. Okay, that's great. And we've hedged the first leg. So this thing is telling us you're now hedging leg 1, okay? So let's say that we've hedged, we've put 91.31, just like it told us, on this 1.93 on the Bruins game, right? Now, if that loses, then fantastic. We've just made $85 straight away. However, if that bet wins, now it's asking us to hedge 214.91 on this Stefan Diggs under 4.5 at 1.82. Now, the issue is, what if those odds are no longer 1.82? What if they're down to 1.75? Well, in that case, now you're not making 84.92 anymore. You're now making 76.32. Okay, so if those odds reduce by the time that you're placing that bet, then yes, you will make slightly less in profit. However, the profit is still very likely to be higher than you would have made with the DutchMatcher. So that's why we're kind of like, we would still suggest using the Parlay Matcher even though those odds may come in. Because likewise, you could place 233.50 here, then that bet wins, and maybe these odds actually increase, so these become more favorable. Let's say it goes up to 2.4 or 2.5, and now suddenly you're making $90 from your $100 free bet. Okay, so it's not completely locked in profit here. It is subject to these odds kind of changing, and you can make a bit more or a bit less depending on how these odds fluctuate as the parlay progresses. And if that bet wins, then your money's all going to be in Bet99. You'll be up 692 on Bet99. You'll be down 600 on Pinnacle, giving you $90 profit. But let's say everything goes to plan. You go 92.20 in here. If it loses, then you're finished. If it wins, then you simply hedge the next leg, 237.26. If that loses, then again, you're finished straight away. But if it wins, you simply hedge the next step. If that one wins, then all your balance is in Bet99. And if it loses, then all your balance is in Pinnacle. So you'll be 0 on Bet99 because it was a free bet, and you'll be up $85.74 in this example on Pinnacle. So that is going to be your profit, right? So that's a very quick example of how to use the Parlay Matcher to convert a free bet into around $85 profit. Now let's just go back to Bet99 and Pinnacle here for a second. So let's say that we don't want to take on any risks with these player receptions, okay? So let's say that we're thinking, you know, that Stefan Diggs game might be quite volatile. The odds might change by the time that my parlay gets onto that, and I don't want to take on that risk. Well, I can reduce the risk by simply deselecting player props. So we're keeping it very simple. Now we're just going main markets. Okay, we're going to get less free bet rating, but the odds are less likely to move as much. Okay, so let's say that we're doing this one here. We've got these three bets, NBA, NHL, and NFL. We're going to say open, and now we're going to lock in $77.52. Although it's not quite locked in, as your odds can change here. We've also got these links to the event, for example, on Bet99. Depending on what sportsbook it is, you might be able to get a link directly to the bet slip, but you can click these and access the actual game. Okay. So we know how to use the Parlay Matcher to juice free bets. Okay, I've kind of talked about how we can use these filters. We pick the best rated free bet rating, and we place this parlay, and then we're hedging each leg sequentially. Okay, that's what we're doing here. And now I want to talk about how you can use the Parlay Matcher in risk-free bet mode. Okay, so let's head over to risk-free bet mode. And you can see here that it's giving us a risk-free bet rating of 51%. The DutchMatcher is giving us a risk-free bet rating of 45%. So yes, it's a little better here. But actually, if we open this calculator, you'll see that we've got a free bet retention here. And that is essentially saying, how much do you think that you can convert your free bet into as a profit, right? And we just saw that we can get a free bet rating of 85%. And if you were to stick around and wait for the Parlay Matcher to spit out better ratings, then you could even get like up to 90% there. But let's just say 85% to be conservative, right? So now all of a sudden, if we've got a risk-free bet offer, let's say you got a $100 risk-free bet, you can actually convert that into $64.76 instead of, as it would be in this case, around $45. So you're getting substantial profit improvements here. You're getting substantially better profit from using the Parlay Matcher versus the DutchMatcher. So let's say that we're going ahead here, and you know, for the sake of argument, Bet99's standard offer is a $500 risk-free bet. So this thing's telling us that we can make $323 from this offer. All right? Much better than the standard kind of $200 to $250 that you would get from the DutchMatcher. So we're going to say parlay name, Bet99 risk-free bet. We're going to save that parlay. We're going to head over to the save parlays, and just underneath here is where you can see all of your saved parlays. So let's load in this Bet99 risk-free bet parlay, okay? Now this thing understands all of the calculations of what's going on here. It understands that we're using a risk-free bet here, so it will advise these stakes accordingly, bearing in mind that if you lose the bet on Bet99, you'll get a $500 free bet, which we know that we can convert into $425 in this example. So just like before, we're placing our two-way parlay in this example on this Blue Jackets Tampa Bay Lightning game on the under 5.5, and also Seahawks minus 4.5. Okay, so this is a two-way parlay, and this is a risk-free bet that we're doing here. So this is going to be with our cash that we're placing this two-way parlay, and then we're hedging the first leg. So we're hedging just the over 5.5 for now, right? Just like before, I said that we're hedging each leg as it happens, right? But only if the first leg wins on Bet99 do we have to hedge the second leg here. So let's say that we've hedged 613.52 on Pinnacle. That's great. If it wins, then we have to move on to the second leg. All right, so we'd hedge 1807.69 on Pinnacle, and if that wins, then we're up $323 straight away. If it loses, however, then our bet on Bet99 is lost, right? So we're going to get a $500 refund, which we can convert into $425, okay? So we're also going to be up $323, right? So this thing is taking care of every scenario, no matter if you win the bet on Bet99 or if you lose the bet and then have to cash out the free bet refund. This thing's going to make sure that you're up around $323 regardless. Of course, the odds might change and you might make a bit more or less. You know, if you do $613 there, let's say that bet wins, and let's say those odds go up to 1.65, well, now you're going to make $422, okay, instead of your $323. So that is the Parlay Matcher in risk-free bet mode. The last thing I'm going to do is just show you how to do it in normal mode, and it's essentially all the same kind of stuff. Let's say, for example, we're doing a B-win offer, and in case you don't know, the B-win offer is just a normal bet, so it's a sports bonus where the stake is returned, right? So that's what the whole idea with normal mode. That means that the stake is returned as part of your winnings, unlike a free bet where it's not returned. So let's just say we're using the Parlay Matcher in normal mode, and you'll see that we can get a nice high 4.36 odds here, and you can also see B-win is giving us nice direct links to the bet slip. You may well be thinking, why would I want to use the Parlay Matcher in normal mode, you know, if I'm doing a sports bonus? And the reason for that is, if you've ever done a sports bonus, you'll know that you want to bust out that bonus as quickly as possible. So if your first bet was like, for example, the entire balance at a parlay odds here of 4.2, that gives you a very good chance of not having to do the wagering requirements. So your balance will all be in the hedge sportsbook. You'll be finished the sports bonus and you won't have to do any wagering. That's why this is quite appealing to use the Parlay Matcher in normal mode. All right, so we're doing this in normal mode. As always, you simply place your two-way parlay on sportsbook 1. So you place this two-legged parlay on B-win, and then just like before, you're hedging each leg as it happens. All right. You know, in the case of B-win, you're actually hoping that bet loses on B-win, and so all your money moves over to Pinnacle. But the premise, the idea is exactly the same. You're placing this two-way parlay and then hedging the first leg. Only if that first leg wins on B-win do you have to hedge the second leg, okay? But as always, this parlay hedge calculator is going to take care of all that for you, and it's going to tell you exactly what to do. So it's telling you you're now hedging leg 1. So you're hedging leg 1. If that wins, then you have to hedge leg 2. Okay, so in this example, you're going to lose around $2. This is just like a normal bet, right? So you're putting $100 on B-win, you're hedging each leg, and of course you're going to lose, you know, a percentage of that. Just one final example, I think Caesars were offering, you know, for example, 20% boost on 3-leg parlays. So you can actually just put in there 20% boost, and we've essentially got an ARB here. So we've got a parlay ARB, if you like. You know, we've got a 110% rating, and this thing is saying that if you put on this 3-way parlay, Caesars are going to add a 20% boost to that parlay, so they're going to pay out 20% extra, so it overwrites the parlay odds here, okay? And then you just have to hedge each of these legs just as normal, and you would, in theory, there lock in $10 profit. So if there's ever any sportsbook that's giving a leg boost, you know, I've seen Betano do this, Bet365 do this, Caesars do this, you can actually use this leg boost to update the effective odds, okay? So it's no longer 6.35, it's now 7.42, and therefore we can get a 110% rating. And you can also use that 2-leg boost or 3-leg boost in free bet mode. So if the sportsbook is also offering this boost on free bets or even just cash bets, like if you're doing a risk-free bet, then yes, you can also, you know, use that 3-leg boost to juice a bit more there. Okay, so in the case of Caesars, for example, they do have a risk-free bet as their offer, and if they were offering a 3-leg boost, for example, you could actually get 70% here. Okay, so that's obviously enormous. So that's how to use the Parlay Matcher. I've gone through an example in free bet mode, risk-free bet, and normal bet. You save your parlay and then you open it up in the parlay hedge calculator. This is where you store all of your saved parlays. And then whenever it's finished, whenever you've completed this whole thing, right? So let's say that you've completed this whole thing, maybe that one loses, for example, you can actually log that bet in the profit tracker as well, okay? And by the way, you can save this as you go through. So let's say that you've maybe just placed that, you've hedged that first bet, okay? You can save this at any time. So just say save parlay, and then that will save the fact that you've placed this bet, all right? And when all is said and done, let's say that this one is placed now and that one lost, for example. Now you can log that bet in the profit tracker. Okay, and that's gonna, and you can see over here that adds as a parlay manual. Okay, so it knows that it was a free bet on Bet99. You lost $91 from your first hedge stake, but then you won the second leg. So, you know, overall you made about $80 here. So that's the Parlay Matcher. As always, if anything doesn't make sense, just head to the contact us page. We'd prefer if you can raise a ticket on Discord, and we will help you as well as we can. Thanks, guys.